And when I went into a coma, the doctors told my family that these were my final hours. Unbeknownst to everyone around me, though, my awareness during that time when I was in a coma was actually heightened. I was aware of everything that was going on around me. I was aware of everything the doctors were doing, all the conversations that were taking place. I was aware of my family, my husband standing or sitting by my bedside, and my mother. My mother was praying to Shiva and Ganesha. My husband was just sitting by my bedside holding my hand and watching the dials above my bed, willing for me to come back. But I was also aware of what they were feeling, and I was aware of everything that even the doctors were feeling and the nurses and everybody who was treating me. It was like I shared their same essence, like I could feel, like I shared their consciousness. But not only that, the most amazing thing was that for the first time in my life, I felt this incredible feeling of unconditional love. It was like I was embraced by this feeling of total unconditional love. It's really hard to describe this feeling because it's much more powerful than any kind of love that I've ever experienced in physical life before. It was truly unconditional in that for the first time in my life, I felt I didn't have to do anything to prove myself or do anything to deserve it. I was loved just because I existed. I felt as though I had always been loved, but had never realized it. In that realm, I realized that I had actually always been loved, but never knew. I also felt as though my consciousness was expanding so that it stretched far greater, much more than the room that my physical body was contained in. I was aware of my body lying there on the hospital bed. But it was as though my consciousness was far bigger than my body, and the body actually looked insignificant to me. And my consciousness continued to expand. And it felt as though time and space was very different in that realm. It was as though I could be anywhere at any time. There was no time lapse, like I could travel any distance and there would be no time lapse. It was as though everything was happening simultaneously. The best way I can describe it is as though I was viewing my life or lives. It was as though I could see what were past lives plus my future, and I could see it all happening simultaneously, as though I was viewing a tapestry. And this is what I mean about it happening all at once. Like when you're viewing a tapestry, you see the entire completed tapestry. There's no time lapse between the time you see this color or this part and that part. I was able to see it all at once. It was as though all my lives were happening simultaneously. Everything was just so clear. And it was like I was one thread woven in that tapestry. I could see where I had been. I could see where I had yet to go. But I could also see there were choices. That if I went this way, this would happen. And if I went this way, this would happen. And there were parts of the tapestry that were still unfinished. I could see all the lives I had already touched and all the lives that I had yet to touch. Now, I just want to add here, though, that in that realm, because time didn't exist in the way it does here, here we perceive in linear time, where we perceive one thought or one moment of time at a time and we string it together to make linear time. It's not like that there. It's like all of time is existing all at once. So in the retelling of my story, I'm telling it in linear time and I have to give it a sequence. but this isn't the exact sequence in which it happened. I realized that love gets very distorted in this dimension, in this realm. In that realm, I started to understand that when we cross over, not only do we leave behind our physical bodies, our physical biology, our bodies, but with our bodies goes our gender, which we leave behind. We leave behind our race, our culture. We leave behind our ego, our values. All these get left behind. So what crosses over? Our essence, our pure essence, our consciousness. Once you've stripped all these layers and layers of filters away, that essence that is left, that essence is pure, unconditional love. It's just pure before it's been diluted and filtered through all our cultural conditionings and gender conditionings and so on, and ego responses. You know, the thing is, I want to use another metaphor to describe what the planet feels like. All these little things, I mean the self-love thing, it's like the simplest thing. Why is it that nobody's taught that from a young age? Coming out of an NDE, it feels like the world, our rules, our laws and everything have been created by blind people for blind people. And if I give you a metaphor, I like to use metaphors because sometimes there aren't words in the English language to describe what happened, what I experienced in the other realm. But I want you to pretend, play along with me. Imagine that you were born blind and you've never seen, you've never had sight ever before in your life. So you were born blind. Now, imagine if someone's talking to you about colors, red and blue. You've never seen colors. So there's no way you even know what they're talking about. So now imagine if someone gives you a red cup in your hand and a blue cup in the other hand. You can't see them. And this person is telling you one cup is red, one cup is blue. So you've got these cups in your hand and they're identical in every other way. And so you're feeling these cups and you are feeling them all over, you're licking it, you're biting it, and then you're doing it to the other one and you're saying, nope, there's no difference, they're identical. And this person is saying, no, there's another property which you're not aware of, but they're different. And you're saying, nope, I don't believe you, they're identical. This is what it sometimes feels like, coming back from an experience like this and trying to integrate it. And there are things that you just want people to know, but sometimes there just aren't the words. Now I want you to take this game a little bit further and imagine if you live in like a home or a country or a society where every single person in that country is blind and has been born blind and they've never had sight before. Now think about it. If you are blind and you've been born blind, you have no concept of shades, light and dark. You have no concept of spatial awareness. Right now you can look across the room and you can measure distance just by sight. You know that it'll take you 30 seconds to walk across the room just by looking at it. But if you were blind, there's no way you would know that. You would have to physically walk it and feel your path. Also, if you're blind, you can't stand there and find the shortest path between 2 points. You have to try every path and then physically measure the time. Now imagine if you can see for a day, just one day, and one person can see, and your eyes open, and suddenly you can see everything, and there's this clarity this incredible clarity, and everything makes sense. And you know why every time you walk that way, your leg bumps into something. But when you walk that way, it doesn't. And you know by seeing that all you have to do is go and move that thing out of the way. When you can see, you can actually figure out the shortest distance between 2 points. And you now know that for me to get from the bedroom to the kitchen, there's a shorter way than what I've been doing. So then even if you go back to being blind again, nobody and nothing can take away that sight that you briefly had that gave you that clarity and understanding. And that's exactly what it feels like, having that glimpse, that clarity of life. And so now, imagine that even if you've gone back to being blind again, you know the shortcuts. You know that if I walk from here to there, it's much shorter than going the long way. And so you want to tell people or show them. And you are aware that the environment that you were living in, that you are living in, has been co-created by everybody around you who has always been blind, who has never had sight. That's the situation.